In the last series of videos, we were looking at the nature of ethics, and we also summed up with a couple of biases that can affect you at the individual level. What we do this week is change our focus. Rather than looking at the nature of ethics, what ethics is, how it differs from other standards and ethical relativity, many of which are more meta-ethical questions and descriptive ethical questions, we're going to move into the way that most people think about ethics, which is normatively. By normative ethical questions, I mean those that try and tell us how we should act under certain situations from that ethical perspective. So what we're going to do is to cover some key theories of ethics or frameworks or ways of thinking about ethics. We've chosen these ones because they're classical, they're foundational. There are a lot more models, many more modern models, etc., but most of them build upon these ideas or seek to fill some of the gaps from these ideas. So I think it's important that you have this foundation because this foundation really underpins most of the way ethics is thought about in business. So if you want to understand that, then we've got to know what these theories actually espouse. So we're going to do that. We're going to move through some theories. And then at the end, we're going to revisit biases. Now, rather than thinking about biases that might occur at the individual level, what we're going to do is to look at biases that can occur because you're in an organisation. So how does being in a group or in a collective start to affect your decision making? But before we get to that, I want to touch on this issue about what we can apply the descriptive or the adjective of ethical to. Most people would agree that you could describe someone as an ethical person. Many people would also use that adjective to describe organisations or countries or systems, right? Organisation X is ethical. So why don't we have a look at whether that's possible or what we actually mean when we use the term ethical in that way. So last week we were wrestling with the question of what you believe around certain key ethical issues. For instance, ethical relativism was one of the key discussions that we had. So quite clearly, I think we can apply ethics to the individual. You make decisions, your boss makes decisions, I make decisions. The question I'd have, though, is what do we mean if we say an organisation is ethical? Is it even possible for an organisation to be ethical? Now, many of you, your automatic answer will be yes, but why am I saying that? Well, in real life, there's no such thing as an organisation. For instance, here at the university, there's no such thing as QUT. If you're saying QUT is ethical or unethical, what you're really saying is someone made ethical or unethical decisions. An organisation can't make it. Every decision or action needs to actually come from an individual. So if you say an organisation is unethical, are you saying that every member of that organisation is unethical? Or are you saying the leadership is unethical? Or what is it that you're actually saying? In the same way, we can start to ask these questions from a societal level or a systemic level. So when people might make the claim that, communism or capitalism, trying to keep it balanced, people, right? If they say one of those two is evil or unethical, however you want to think about it, what are you really saying? Because the people are what is it actually trying to say? Are you saying everyone in there? Are you saying the leaders of these systems? It's a very interesting issue. So what I think we're trying to say is maybe there's some context that's common across these groups. The rules the culture in the organisation or nation, the norms that lead to a pattern of decision making. Now, if you accept that, it starts to make you realise that this issue of bias that we deal with at the end of Lecture 1 and Lecture 2 is critical. Because what you're saying is this context or this pattern creates systemic bias in the individuals. Because at the end of the day, decisions and actions can only come from the individual. So if something occurs that is unethical, it's because an individual did it or decided it, either individually or as part of a group. And I really wanted to emphasise this and be a little perhaps controversial in questioning whether you can have an ethical or unethical organisation, because I really wanted to drive home this issue of moral disengagement. If you're putting the blame on the organisation, you're taking the accountability off the individual, rather than saying, at the end of the day, there's an individual doing something there. So again, something for you to think about and to re-emphasise why this issue of bias and systemic arrangements are so critical to understanding ethics in organisations. So with that out of the way, one of the points that we've made going through thus far is that people can think about ethics from different perspectives. And so what we're going to do is to outline 3 different perspectives or ways of thinking about ethical problems. In essence, imagine people have a ruler to work out what their standard is, but people are using 3 different rulers. One ruler or one set of standard is based upon judging things by their consequences. One set of standards, a different set, is based upon judging ethics by what people do, not what the consequences are, different things. And then the third set is based upon a standard thinking about what an ethical person would do. It's neither consequences nor action per se. To explore these 3 different perspectives, we're going to use 3 classical theories: Utilitarianism, Kant's approach to deontology, and Aristotle's virtue ethics.